Yo, what is up, guys? It's Pedro here. So we have a lot to talk about. So the Washington Commanders made some offensive and defensive coaching staff changes. We'll talk about that. Also, some Sam Howell news from Ron Rivera, and of course, more Dan Snyder news. And we even got some Duron Payne news as well. So if you guys are new, make sure to subscribe for Washington and NFL content. Hit that like button and the notification bell as well. All three of those things help the channel out a ton. Okay, so let's start off with the coaching staff changes. So, new coaches, quarterback coach Tavita Pritchard. I made a video about this and talked about it in last week's stream, but this was expected to happen. They just didn't officially announce it yet, but Tavita Pritchard, if you don't know, I went more in depth, into it in my other video, but he's a Stanford offensive coordinator for a while, also quarterbacks coach, played quarterback at Stanford, and was a coach from 2009 to 2022, so a very long time as a Stanford, offensive coordinator slash quarterbacks coach. Helped, develop Davis Mills at Stanford. In Houston, it hasn't worked out a ton, but Tavita Pritchard got him to the level where he was drafted in the early third round of the 2021 NFL draft. So did a good job there and developed some other good guys as well, including JJ Arcega-Whiteside. I mean, he got him as got him to be a second round pick over guys like Terry, DK Metcalf, AJ Brown, Deontay Johnson, and other guys. So I mean, that alone deserves an award. And there's some other guys like Kobe Parkinson, and I'm forgetting some other names as well. And then some changes. Ken Zampese is now the senior offensive advisor slash game management. So not like a specific position coach, but he's going to be, helping out with some of the game planning and stuff. And of course, we'll still probably help out a little bit with the QBs. And then promotions wise, DB coach Brent Wieselmeyer is going to be the DB coach now. I can't remember exactly what his role was before. Richard Rogers will be the senior defensive assistant slash safeties coach, and then Christian Garcia will be the assistant DB slash nickel coach. So all these guys were all already on the roster or on the coaching staff. And shout out John Keim, who about a month ago talked about. He basically said this exact thing will happen. So they made an internal promotion, and I'm fine with it. The DB coaches, or the DBs overall, played pretty well last year. You saw the development of Derek Forrest, and Percy Butler played better as the year went on. And Benjamin St-Juste looked good when he was healthy, and the health isn't really the coach's fault. So, that's kind of it for the offensive coaching changes and defensive coaching changes. Only one that we still don't know yet is receivers coach. We don't have one because Drew Terrell left to be the pass game coordinator and maybe even the receivers coach for the Arizona Cardinals. So that is still a coach they need to replace. But besides that, it looks like they've got their coaching staff in place. And the big changes was Eric Bieniemy, obviously, and then Tavita Pritchard and Chris Harris leaving and David Terrell leaving as well. So let's go to Duron Payne. So this was expected, but a little bit earlier than expected, honestly. If they're, they franchise tagged him really early in the morning, like 2 or 3 in the morning, and it's projected to be about $18.937 million. And my thing is, if they did this that early, then they probably weren't that close to a deal at all, because if they were close, they would have waited until that March 7th deadline. I mean, there's 8 days until that happens, so they clearly were not close on a deal, which doesn't make me very optimistic for a deal to, for them to come to an agreement on a deal. But franchise tagging them is not a bad option, because you at minimum keep them under team control for another year, and you can still trade them if you want. I prefer them coming to, agreement on a long-term deal, because Duron Payne's a very good player, and I want to keep him as our starting D tackle, Pro Bowl, D tackle. But if we can't come to terms on a deal, trade him before the draft where his value is higher. Don't wait until later when teams already fill their holes. Get one in the draft. Do it in the draft, so then you can use those draft picks then. That's my take on it. You still have basically 2 months until the draft, so just get it done. Get a deal done. Pay him what he wants. He has leverage now. Now that this franchise tag is done, it's $18.9 million. He's going to have to get over $19 million per year, and it's probably going to be like 21. I've been saying that for a while. $21+ million a year for Duron Payne. I think it's worth it. him and Jonathan Allen are a great duo, and you keep them under lock or under contract for the next 4 years, and I think that's the best D tackle duo in all of football. So I would try to keep him. And then Rivera talked about at the combine, and nothing huge, but he said Sam Howell is not the starter next season. He says he's simply entering offseason as QB1 and will compete. He's not our starter, but basically at the same time he's saying he's a starter because, it's basically his job to lose, kind of like the Ryan Fitzpatrick year. He's basically going to be the starter, and as long as he doesn't, completely wet the bed in training camp and, OTAs and preseason, he's going to be the starter, and he'll have a decent leash. He'll be, even a couple bad games, he'll still be that guy. So, he kind of just had to say that because he doesn't want to hand that job to Howell. And I think it doesn't matter because I think Howell's going to be motivated anyways. But if you just say he's a quarterback entering into training camp, then, some quarterbacks might not work as hard as others. So that's just another layer to the situation. But I don't think Sam Howell's like that. I think Sam Howell will work very hard regardless of if he's entering or if he's, the starting quarterback or not. He's going to work hard like he did last year, the whole, season. And then the other stuff, always with Dan Snyder, I don't want to get into it too much because I'm not an expert on these things, and it's just getting old, man. Every couple weeks we get a new allegation, new something. But ESPN came out with the report saying the Washington Commanders' 3 minority owners allege that owner Dan Snyder committed bank fraud in securing a $55 million loan without board approval per ESPN. The NFL buried it, didn't investigate, and covered it up. This is jail time type of fraud. So should add this another thing to the list of just terrible things that Dan Snyder has done under his time as owner of the Commanders. And if you're one of those people that thinks we could get worse, a worse owner than Dan Snyder, just know. Jeff Bezos, Josh Harris, Fertitta, I don't really like Fertitta or however you pronounce his name, but none of them are going to be worse than Dan Snyder. None of them. I can guarantee you that because we have 24 years of proof of how bad Dan has been, and honestly one of the worst owners in sports history. When it all goes down, not only the on-field, failure, but the off-field failure as well. It's just been absolutely atrocious. It's a disgrace, and it looks like all signs are pointing towards Dan Snyder to be out as owner. But if he somehow comes back, it's going to be very hard being a fan of this team. I will, of course, still be a fan of this team, but I know a lot of people are just going to boycott the team until he does so. But Snyder does not really have many options left. He's going to have to sell or else he's out. He's out, guys. Let's see. Kevin Sheehan, he had a good tweet just kind of going through the takeaways from the report because I didn't read it, and then we'll end it. He says, Snyder has to sell, can't afford to keep it. Other reasons, too, but plan the parade. Snyder team has really been struggling financially compared to other teams. Cash flow, major problem, has affected football decisions. I've talked about that a lot. Snyder's not very liquid, and I have bashed the front office for not being creative in terms of creating cap space, but every time I have bashed them, and honestly more recently, I've just come to the realization that, Snyder's not liquid, and that's why it's not, they're not converting the signing or, the contracts to signing bonus and restructuring like all the other teams are doing. And I've just come to that realization that it's probably not their fault, but still it could be. So that's why I still bash him a little bit. And then he says, 3, Snyder's best punch is punching himself in the face. Turning his minority shareholders against him along with Gruden emails is part of why he's in this position today. But it's also true he will make a good return on price. He paid to buy them out. Snyder's deteriorating relationship with co-investors, especially Fred Smith, contributed to the loss of the team name on July 20th. May have happened eventually, but Smith was done with Dan and went scorched earth. Snyder's sneaky, so is Goodell. Let's get the man out of here. I'm just absolutely done with Dan Snyder, and I want this done tomorrow, today, yesterday. Just get him done. I'm so sick of this. Every week we get something new with him, and nothing happens. So that's why, I'm really happy that, it looks like he's going to be gone, but until it happens, I'm not celebrating anything. So that's it. Peace, guys.